afternoon and welcome. This is Steve Fryer, and you're in the Millennium Cafe, along with my co-host Kathleen Jacoby. And our guest today is Byron Katie, and she is the subject of this book called A Cry in the Desert, The Awakening of Byron Katie. And, this is sort of intimidating for me to do this interview. I've heard that Byron Katie has been enlightened, and I haven't met too many people that I thought were enlightened. I mean, you don't look any different. Most
our eyes do.
Your eyes look good, though.
How unenlightened of you not to see me as enlightened. No, that's not my experience of it, Steve.
Well, it's interesting because, you are you inside, and you have had a turnaround, though.
Yes.
Would you describe it as a turnaround?
An absolute turnaround.
I think for our listeners that don't know what you do something called the work.
Yes.
All right. Let's get that out of the way first. What is the work?
The work is judge your neighbor, write it down, ask 4 questions, turn it around.
So it's sort of a structured process that you came up with.
It's inquiry. It's simple inquiry. There are 4 questions, and then we turn it around. And the second question is just in case you didn't get the first one. So really 3 questions. But it's simple inquiry, and it ends confusion for many, many people. And the simplicity of it is its beauty, and it's for everyone. It crosses all the barriers of religion or creed or philosophy, theology. Just innocent questions.
Well, what are the questions in the work designed to do?
Set a person free in case they think they're not.
Well, we should probably let our audience in on a little bit about your background. I know you don't like to talk about the past too much, but prior to 1986, how would you describe your life?
As very confused, extremely painful, no reason for it other than confusion. I had 3 wonderful children, very sweet husband, and hated the world. Very agoraphobic, extremely paranoid, and depressed beyond hope or help.
And had you tried different modalities of therapy to?
No therapy. No, just just like this raging, confused woman, just looking for a way out of depression. But what I say are women from Barstow don't know about therapy, and of course that's not true, but this woman from Barstow didn't.
You were living in Barstow, California at the time?
Yeah, and that's where I spent most of my life. And then I was watching a television program where they used to advertise these hospitals a lot that could fix anything.
Right.
So I called one of those, and they said our insurance would not cover it. And so I called the insurance, and I said, well, what would you cover? And
drugs.
They get drugs. But they said that I would have to see one of their therapists, and I did. And I think I was there 5-10 minutes, and it was clear to her I needed something. And the only thing our insurance would cover was a halfway house. So that's where my husband deposited me.
And what was it like in the halfway house?
Well, it was interesting. And I learned a year later that the women were so afraid of me that they didn't want me there. And so I was put in the top in this little attic. And that's where I slept on the floor. And they would booby trap. They put all kinds of booby trap things on the staircase below. They were afraid that I would harm them. And my experience was I was just very sweet, kind woman, just misunderstood.
They didn't see you that way, and you were a prisoner in the attic.
Well, not a prisoner. I was a prisoner inside of me, but the attic is simply where I slept.
It sounds terrible.
Well, it was. My whole life was terrible, and no reason for it. Again, I had everything.
Had you contemplated suicide or anything like that?
Oh, yes, just moment by moment, every moment.
So an incredible separation.
Incredible separation. Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I was lying there one morning and opened my eyes, and the one that closed her eyes on the floor is not the one that opened her eyes. The one that opened her eyes had not been born before, had not ever seen this place before. And many people referred to me as a walk-in, immediately started referring to me as that, and that was not my experience. And it really helped my children and husband to understand this new one that was apparently in the same body and the same sound to her voice, but no other recognition other than physical.
Where do you think the process of the work actually came from?
That moment.
So you saw reality in a way that was obscure to a lot of people. You saw the defining constriction of the body and of a separate consciousness all of a sudden melted away, or it was as though you just saw clearly that all was one?
I just opened my eyes without constriction.
Without constriction.
And yet, there was this thought that appeared. This, I call it the story. And then this contraction around it. And I could see before the attachment to that story, peace, no contraction. And I could see that the thought attached to was not true. So therefore, all four questions. And this is how this has been held for 13 years, we could say. And others have moments of clarity that are much more profound than my experience, and they're not able to hold it.
Right.
They'll hold it a day, a week, a couple of months, a couple of years, and lose it. And through this inquiry that we call the work of Byron Katie, people are holding it all over the world. And it didn't, this enlightenment, it didn't feel enlightened to me.
At the time?
It was free until attachment to the thought.
Yes.
And then it was as though I was the earth and a meteor had just struck it. And that's the power of attaching to a thought as though it were real. So I knew clearly that I was to what I call undo every story within me, to meet it with understanding, so that it doesn't matter what appears. I'm a friend. I meet my concepts. I meet the concepts with understanding. And so that's what I bring to people who ask.
How long did it take you to get out of the halfway house?
Oh, I flunked.
After that?
Yeah. They asked me to write a thing that could show that I was ready to leave, and there's no way that I could do that. There was no one to write. There was nothing to write. It was hopeless. And I just, it was done. I just left.
You just walked out?
Yes.
The beauty of what you're saying to me is as though I see the strands going back to our history. And it's like an eraser. Just erase those ties that bind us.
Exactly so, Kathleen.
We're with Byron Katie, and you're in the Millennium Cafe. We'll have more about Byron and the work when we return. Stay with us. And we're back. This is Steve Fryer, and you're in the Millennium Cafe with Byron Katie today. And Byron is the subject of a book called A Cry in the Desert, The Awakening of Byron Katie. And you've taken your work, Byron, all over the world by now. I've heard that. How does this work? Do you put on seminars all over? How does it get out there?
People invite me. I say yes, I go.
Do you charge for the work?
No.
How does that work? How do you pay for your expenses and so forth?
Well, what I say is if people see that the work has value, then support it. And if it doesn't have value, don't support it. If it doesn't have value, why would we want with it? So it just does, it has its own life, and I don't interfere with it. It came free, it goes out free.
That's great.
Well, there you have an absolutely exquisite way of living in the moment and not painting pictures with thought that are going to be restrictive, because you're totally open.
Yes.
You made a comment earlier about it being that the world was a beautiful world, not
Yes.
a restrictive world. I don't know if that was on air or not, but this is it. We all think what we're restricted, we're limited.
Yeah, this is paradise. And any thought we attach to that would oppose that concept at all is not valid if we inquire. And it almost sounds like trickery to make ourselves see it that way, and that could not be more untrue. Mm-hmm. It truly is the Garden of Eden. I am one that lives that and knows that, and I have come from hell, and I know the power of just simple inquiry for people who are suffering to go within themselves and to know for themselves what is true without the trickery. And we just haven't known how.
Mm-hmm. Do you think some of that comes from the fact that we are each in distinct individual bodies, that because we're in a body we have the assumption that therefore there is limitation, rather than seeing that these are merely expressions of something bigger?
Well, see, even a body is a concept. Mm-hmm. So you investigate that concept, and you come to see that it's not, the possibility that it's not even so. And that doesn't mean we're not a body. It's just to go in and investigate the thought, the thinking, the story. So it radically shifts our perception once we are aware of, on the other side of investigating the simplest things.
This sounds a lot from what little I know about Zen Buddhism. It sounds very, very Zen.
I've been told it's perfect Buddhism, perfect Zen Buddhism. I've also been told it's perfect for the Methodist. I've also been told it's the only thing atheists can deal with. Mm-hmm. I've been told it's the Kabbalah. And it's nothing more than 4 questions. Isn't that amazing?
Well, that brings up a topic that I'd like to get into. What is your concept of God or the deity, if you have one?
What is? I'm a lover of what is. I'm a lover of reality. And that's the simplest thing. I love sitting here at this table with the two of you. That's my world.
So you really are in the moment where you are, not projecting, not expecting, just seeing the exquisiteness of what is right now.
Yes. And isn't it amazing that there's nothing else to see, and yet we would let attachment to a story, leave the appearance of trailing away, not to see the simplest thing in front of us. To be that. It's just too simple.
Well, maybe we could stand an example here, maybe from one of the workshops or whatever. I think people need to hear a story to know what this is really about.
Good.
All right. And can you give us an example of someone that maybe went through a workshop and had an experience and turned it around?
Every email. It's interesting. We deal with thousands and thousands of people, and in 13 years, no complaint. That's just, by some standards, remarkable. So I would ask you, Steve, in the world's terms, what is not okay on the planet? What is not okay in the world story?
Well, war, suffering, disease.
Yes. So there is not supposed to be war on the planet. Can you really know that that's true? We all want to end war.
That would be great if we could do it.
That would be great. And have we succeeded yet?
Not yet.
No, not from the beginning of time that I call the beginning of thought. So what happens inside of you when you attach to the story, there should be no war?
Well, I get angry.
And how do you live when you see something around war?
Well, how do I live? It makes me, I guess, fearful and fearful for my future and the future of my children and
Yeah.
my friends and loved ones.
Yes. So can you see a reason to drop the story? And I'm not asking you to drop the story. The story that we're not supposed to have war on earth.
I don't know if I understand that.
So you attach to the thought, we need to end war, and you experience frustration, anger, fear.
That's right.
So the question simply is, can you see a reason to drop the story?
So I can feel better.
Yes, I see you are not a masochist.
So is that a way to, well, some people might say you're sticking your head in the sand then.
Yes, a lot of people may say that. That's why I say, and I'm not asking you to drop the story. Heavens, you know, I would not ask anyone to stop suffering. I wouldn't even go there. So I would ask you, can you see one good reason to keep the story?
Oh, I like that you're asking him this.
Wait, I'm supposed to be asking the questions.
We get into this one.
One good reason to keep the story. War needs to end on this planet. One good reason to keep this story that is not stressful, fearful, or anger-making.
I don't know. I mean, this is a new concept for me.
And isn't it interesting that it was simply a question?
Yeah, it's powerful.
Who would you be, sweetheart, without the story?
Who knows? I might not be on the planet.
Yeah, it might be the end of war within you. Yeah. So there's not supposed to be war on the planet. Turn it around. We've just done the 4 questions, so now the turnaround. There's not supposed to be war on the planet. Turn it around. What's the extreme opposite?
Being stuck, I guess.
There is. There's not supposed to be war on the planet. What's the opposite?
Total war. Annihilation.
There is supposed to be war on the planet.
And that's okay.
It is what is.
So you wouldn't pretend to want to eradicate war or disease.
I'm a lover of what is.
So what you are doing is getting out of non-duality. You're moving out of duality.
What I'm doing is living in the experience of someone coming to me, talking about war and meeting that person with understanding, and this is the end of war on this planet.
Yes.
It's being, you see, Steve, just that concept, I'm doing war on war. How can I end war when I can't even end it within me? So we're trying to end something that we haven't accomplished within ourselves. So this simple inquiry puts you in a position, the position of Gandhi, the position of Christ. This is like the real thing, sweetheart.
Well,
that's very
That's
powerful.
very deep and powerful. You're in the Millennium Cafe, and we're with Byron Katie today. I'm Steve Fryer, and I'm sure we'll have a bit more right after this. Stay with us. And we're back. You're in the Millennium Cafe, along with my guest, Byron Katie, and my co-host, Kathleen Jacoby. And now that I'm totally undone, I have no idea where we'll go from here, but I'm sure it'll be fun. Byron Katie is the creator of something called The Work of Byron Katie, correct?
Yes.
And before the break, we were talking about war, and I know it seems like the work has a lot to do with relationship. Maybe it primarily has mostly to do with relationship. Is that correct?
Yes. First, relationship with self, and people, some of us can't grasp that. So it appears to be a relationship with our parents, our husbands, our children, our neighbors, and it appears there's another, and there is, because there it is. That's our reality. So, can we just get along within our families? And Kathleen and I were talking earlier, when I had this experience originally, my husband, I was unrecognizable to him, and he'd say, "You don't love me," and he would put his hands on his head and wail through the house, one end to the other, and he'd say, "Do you love me?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm looking for it," and I knew I was supposed to have it. And I looked for it in my toes. I looked for it in my legs. I looked for it in my arms. I knew it was supposed to be there. I could tell by the look on his face. And I would say, "Sweetheart, I don't. I can't find it. That's just the way it is. I can see you want me to, and I don't." And then I noticed maybe 5 minutes later, I would feel this amazing welling up just looking at him. And I'd say, well, first I could recognize that must be it, because, this is really good. And that must be what he was looking for. And I'd say, "Sweetheart, I love you now." And so what I learned was, I do, I don't. I do, I do, I don't. I don't, I don't, I do. And I came to see that that's all he wanted was an honest answer, whether he liked the answer or not. I am a lover of truth. It's like my nature. It's all of our nature, I've come to see. So it's just, can I answer the simplest question? Can I be devoted to that answer inside of me? If it means losing my husband, my children, my neighbors, my world, my money, my car, my dog, my cat.
But they're still there, aren't they?
They stayed. They stayed.
They stuck around.
Most amazing. No wonder I'm a lover of what is. It's very humbling to see the truth, to own it, to live it, and then to see how people oppose it because it's not understood as our way, even though it's understood in the heart. And they stay because they have unioned with the heart in a way that's visible to them. The union that always was, that can never be broken, available, and they're conscious of it. Just too simple.
And in that simplicity is tremendous complexity. Because when we try to think about these things from a mental construct, we can't get it. Yeah. It has to be like a hologram, almost. We have to be willing to just all of a sudden strip away that which we perceive is and move into what is.
Yes, what really is.
What really is. Yeah. And it's empty. It's the no space of the Buddhists, and it's the fullness of other religions.
Yes.
But it is this incredible aha. And it's freeing.
Yes.
Because there's nothing we have to carry. There's no construct we have to hold.
No.
It's magnificent.
Yes. The truth is no respecter of how it sounds or how it looks. It's not a doing. Do you love me? No. Yes. And it doesn't respect. It's not like we think, oh, I'm supposed to love all the time. Well, I do until I don't. And I don't until I do. Now. And I just speak it?
The truth is, I think anybody can relate to that. If they're really honest with themselves, there are times where you feel incredible love for someone. There are other moments where you feel absolutely nothing, and other times where you're not real happy with that other person.
Yes.
So you're just saying we need to be honest and honorable with ourselves.
Yes. To marry that internal thing now in the moment. It's as though if I can't do the simplest thing, just the simplest thing, how can I serve you? And there's no joy in a selfless life. You're all that's left of it. Mm-hmm. To serve you is all that's left. You are me.
Mm-hmm. So we always have to come back to the simplicity. Yes. Simplicity.
Yes.
And that keeps us on track.
We're always on track. It's just to go in and own it. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Kathleen. We all know. It's not a mystery.
So our layers of subterfuge keep us from this incredible being who really resides inside.
Yes. And that's the power of inquiry. It all just becomes so available, so brilliantly and cleanly. It's like, I say, the work is for children. Adults can't play. And we're all children.
What's the youngest person that you know of that has done the work?
Oh, my. I work 3 years old, 4 years old.
It really doesn't matter then,
No.
the age.
80 years old, 90 years old. We all have the same concept. There's no new story.
How perfect to get the little ones,
Yeah.
because how much more they can create without destruction.
Yeah, just to be clear and aware. And no one can fool them, where they have their own inner way.
Have there been any attempts to try to get you to make a real form of this, to, you were saying you go anywhere where you're asked around the world. But is there a movement of people who look at your work to try to put you in a position where you have all the answers rather than once again going into
Yeah,
themselves?
guru status.
No, that can't be done, and everyone tries. Most people try.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the inquiry doesn't allow it, and we end up friends, very sweet friends. Yeah, there's no higher, no lower. And that's, if someone says, "Oh, I love you, you are my everything," I say, "I understand," and turn it around. And then it would be, "Oh, I love me. I'm wonderful." And then in that place we meet as equals.
I like this. Always turning the question around. So give us some more questions. Give us some more examples so that people in the audience can listen. And it's like taking the finger that we point out there and just subtly turning it back to ourselves.
Yes.
Give us more.
Well, a lady asked me the other day, doesn't this turnaround leave us with a lot of guilt and shame? And I said, well, yes, if you step out of the inquiry. It would be like, my husband is a terrible person. Turned around, I'm a terrible person. And then the inquiry, I'm a terrible person. Is that true? Is that really true? And to go in with it. And what do I get for holding the belief I'm a terrible person? And then to go into that and see, as we did in the example with war.
To go beyond the judgment.
Yes. And then who would I be without my story? I'm a terrible person. Oh my, well that is the end of guilt and shame. And in that place of freedom, I'm very clear on what to do, where to go, who I am. So I'm a terrible person. The extreme opposite is I am not a terrible person. I just need to get real here and own that.
So as we project many of these things on our leaders, the leaders become these archetypes almost of our own inability to see something that we need to own.
Yes. But only always.
Only always.
Yes. I did a radio interview I think yesterday, and they were talking about Bill Clinton, President Clinton, and there were some wonderful turnarounds there. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Can you give us some examples of that?
Well, what was said was he should be ethical and honest. And I said, turn it around. That's as good as it's going to get.
We're speaking with Byron Katie, and you are in the Millennium Cafe, along with my co-host Kathleen Jacoby. I'm Steve Fryer, and we'll have one more segment after this, so stay with us. And we're back. You're in the Millennium Cafe. I'm Steve Fryer, and my co-host is Kathleen Jacoby. And our guest today is Byron Katie, and she is the subject of this book, I Cry in the Desert. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you, we were talking about relationships and the fact that the work seems to work really well on relationship of all sorts. What if someone is laying there in the gutter? Let's say he's a bum on the street and he's maybe ill or alcoholic. Like you had some problems too, as you mentioned earlier. How would this apply to that person who's got a physical disease or a problem? Has there been any healings around the work, or is this more of a process that does not apply?
There have been amazing healings. In fact, I would say always, and that's the last interest of the work. We want more than a healthy body. A healthy body never brought anyone freedom.
Well, there's a lot of workshops out there, and they address emotional issues or spiritual issues or whatever, and very few of them have I seen produce physical healings. And to me, that's a sure sign that something is working.
Well, people make all kinds of reports, and it's some very profound, but I just don't have an interest in it. And
That's not your focus.
No,
It's
and I
sort of
don't
a
think
side
it's
effect.
anyone's focus. You know, a happy person doesn't care if they live or die. They're just happy. It's all-consuming. It's you're free. It's done. They don't. You know, I don't care if I'm sick or well or rich or poor. And I'm free. And if I'm not, there's this wonderful inquiry. And it's not. What I love is just, it's not for me. This is for everyone.
So in the book,
And also, if I could interrupt, Kathleen, a man lying in the gutter in the street, I don't see a problem. I have to tell you that. I mean, he could be absolutely free, and you're the one in pain telling the story about how he's suffering. You're suffering in the story of he's suffering. And if I want to know if someone hurts, I might just stop and sit down on the curb beside them and ask. I may learn something.
This is interesting because we have a whole class of people called social workers who, try to help people, but they don't seem to really ever help anyone.
If I think you need help, I need help.
so it's all our judgments.
Yes.
It goes back to we're constantly
That's what gets
projecting
us.
judgment.
And I'm not saying not to help your neighbor, because not to serve you is not to serve myself. That's not what this is about. And I know that no one needs help. And if they ask, I'm there.
In the book, I think I opened it up to a story about, I wanted to know more about how your family reacted to you after you had been in this for a while. And I think there's a story about your daughter. Is it not in the book?
There are...
What's her name?
It's
Roxanne?
Roxanne, yes.
Yeah, tell that story.
Well, I'm not quite... I'm sorry, I haven't read
I think
them.
she was ill. She was in a hospital bed or very ill. And
she was having the baby, possibly.
maybe she was having a baby.
Yeah, she was having
Okay.
a baby.
And what happened?
Yeah, that's a little racy. When my grandson was born, the baby was born, not breathing. The doctor began to manipulate the baby to get him to breathe. It was not happening. The people in the room were quite upset. The doctor began to get extremely uncomfortable, and he was pumping the baby, going, "Breathe, baby, breathe, breathe, baby, breathe," and so finally the baby did. They took him over to the setup they had going, and finally he did breathe. And I said, "Roxanne, you appeared to be so okay with this, and good for you. And I can see you're a lover of reality." And she said, "Mom, I looked over at your face, and you had that smile on it while everyone was so upset. And you had that little smile that you have when you know everything is okay, which is all the time." And she said, "In that moment, I knew that it was okay if the baby lived or died, that I'm not doing this." And she said, in that moment, the baby cried.
And lived.
Yes, and lived. And what I know is my grandson does not have to breathe for me to love him. There's no requirement. There is no separation. And that's the power of love.
So you are beyond the illusion of life and death.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right, and that's what ends up bringing us all to fear. Is this? I mean, one of the things is this tremendous concern that it's finite.
Yes.
There's an end, and we better do everything we can and get it right.
Yes.
And the truth is,
I know there's a man in Munich that was asking for me on his deathbed, and I was like 60 seconds late. He died before I arrived, and they said, "Where were you? Where were you? He was asking for you." So I said, "Well, I'm here." And I went in and sat with him and met the contract. It's alive, dead, they're concepts. And he wanted me, I was there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is a very freeing agent. The knowledge that it all is.
Yes. And it's beyond theory. That's what I love about self-inquiry. That when the focus goes on to this one as a personality or a being of some kind of specialness, it's just absolutely not the case. This is this is the freedom that comes from inquiry. Nothing more, not special, and it's for all of us. And life and death is nothing more than a concept. If it's investigated, it's over. And 4 questions turn it around.
Amazing.
And what I love about this work also is what I call the re-entry. You know, who'd I be without my story? And it leaves you with no world, really. And then you turn it around and you re-enter. And yes, now I'm my brother's keeper. Not my keeper, my brother's only. But the way we've been living is I take care of you because I'm more comfortable. Well, this work, it comes in from a totally opposite polarity, and it's more congruent with what we are, love. Fearless, selfless.
So in other words, it goes back to another one, that if we don't take care of ourselves first, we can't take care of anyone else.
Yes.
Because we're always trying to make up for something that we perceive as lack.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm blown away by this.
Well,
I'm speechless.
That's good. That's good, because then it's percolating, and I think that's what you're trying to do, is to get us to go all beyond our words.
Yes, for people who have an interest in that. You know, or people who, what I say is I used to hurt and now I don't. And I know thousands of people in the same position now. In fact, they even look forward to something happening out of their realm of comfortability so that they can do the work on that.
Well, this has been a most amazing hour, and I'm sorry to say it's drawing to a close, so I want to let people know how to get in touch with you, Byron Katie. You do have a website, and it's www, of course, thework.org.
Yes.
Real simple. So that's one way to get in touch, and you have an 800 number?
And the work is on that website, and it's free to everyone.
Oh, so it is free.
You can just print it out and play.
You can also call 877-584, is it 3967?
I don't know.
Is a toll-free number. It's on this piece of paper here. So I'll say that again, 877-584-3967. I think that spells the work somehow. So again, I think it's time for us all to do the work. So, and I know you do it at by donation. If someone feels that it's worth it for them, they'll give you money, and if not, they don't have to.
And we have a little book that's always free, and on anyone that they think this might serve them in some way, just to call us.
The work,
but
the great
they can
undoing.
call and just ask for a free little booklet, and you don't even have to leave your name.
Well, that's all the time we have, and I want to thank you for being with us in the Millennium Cafe today.
Welcome,
Byron Katie.
Steve. What fun, huh?
We try to have fun.
Thank you, Katie.
Welcome, Kathleen, and
Welcome.
you.